welcome to the Big Kickoff Football Show with myself, Roy Shanahan, David Buggle and Neal Dobbs. On the day, there was breaking news that Rafa Benitez got sacked as Everton manager. Now, Everton fans, Dave, aren't too surprised by this. They were nearly wishing for this to happen. But in fairness, it doesn't matter what sort of connection that you had with Liverpool. If you don't get the results, you don't keep the job.
Yeah, and losing to Norwich would have been critical considering some of the hammers that Norwich have got this year. And Everton, obviously, probably before the season started, would have had no intention of being down there. So to lose to what is now a relegation rival is just unforgivable. And the banner was unfurled, get out of our club. Listen, before it even started, like for a lot of fans, he would have had to be near perfect in order to be accepted. And he was always going to be up against it in a tough job. Flirted with it at the start with the first, say, 6 weeks where things were looking like maybe, and the Greys and the Townsends who came in looked like they kicked off well. But unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out. And it's just the results have been disasters. Like he's come out and said he didn't realise the magnitude of the Everton task because, like, whatever he thinks about Everton beforehand, he certainly knows the club that they are, and they are a massive club in English football. I think I'm right in saying, are they like Arsenal? They've never been relegated. Is it just them and Arsenal are the only team never been relegated from the top division?
I'm not totally sure on that one.
But they're a massive, massive club, and up until the late 80s, and they were as big as anyone else. And fans are desperate to get there, and especially when you have your red, noisy neighbours next door. So, look, the last 2 or 3 months, you could feel it. He was walking the green mile, and then after Norwich, it was just unforgivable.
Yeah,
for the fans, sorry.
For the fans, 100%. Neal, there's a big project there. He wanted to be part of it. They started to let Benitez take over, as in making decisions in the background, making decisions of who should be employed there, who shouldn't be employed there. There's been a couple of people in the background who've been let go on his call. So this really is the fans putting their pressure on the board. He may have got a little bit more time to build something, but once the fans weren't on board, he was running out of time from day one.
Yeah, I think as Dave said, once the results didn't come, it was always going to be a tough task because, you get a grace period at times as a manager. I don't think Rafa was ever going to get any grace. He was just fortunate that he got off to a great start and that kind of, settled early doors. But you could see it over not even the last 5 games, the last 10 games, they've been really, really poor. And he just doesn't seem to be able to get a different reaction out of that team. Now, it's not helped with Calvert-Lewin having the long-term injury. Richarlison was in and out of the side. And then obviously COVID. And then, Everton would have looked even in the last few days. They watched Luca Dean sign for Villa. A couple of players that, they're not bringing anyone in to replace them. They've young lads in the team. So it just seemed to go wrong at the wrong time, And as I say, with the COVID, with the fixture list, with the Christmas period, not picking up any points was a huge problem. And as Dave was saying there about the banner, your man didn't bring the banner on the wish that they won 3-0. He was waiting for that moment to say, right, this is a big moment, and brings out the Rafa out banner. So pressure's mounting. It's a shame because I think it is a big job. I think it's a 3-year job, 5-year job, whatever you want to call it. And I think Benitez bought into that. And at the end of the day, they're going to have to bring someone in to continue that kind of work he was doing by changing the structure of the club, the way they do transfers and who makes these decisions. It just won't be Rafa at the wheel when it happens.
Yeah, Dave, this man here, Wayne Rooney, he is one of the favourites for the job. The reason why I want to talk about Wayne Rooney is because we've seen this with Frank Lampard, who went back to Chelsea and took that job on. And well, that was an immediate one. Wayne Rooney has been with Derby. He's learning a lot of difficulties at Derby County, a lot of difficulties there. Would it be the right move for Wayne Rooney to go now and take that job?
This is the tough one because you can look at both Lampard and Gerrard, so to speak. Like you look at Lampard, Chelsea are in a much better position than Everton, so he probably thought, I'll be up thereabouts in Champions League spots. It would be a little bit easier for him. This is a tough gig where they're in free fall at the moment. Does he want to go in there? They get not relegated, but if they just miss out and it just doesn't work out and whatever, and within 6 months they're already gone, it's too early for him and they're putting the pressure on him because Everton have unfortunately, a bit like Newcastle and stuff, and I can understand why, but the patience is very thin with any manager. Like since Moyes, Koeman was given I nearly said something else there. Let's just say shed load of money, and he was gone straight out the door. Now that's more down to the club than anything, but half of you would be like, this is a potential dream job, but it's also a potential career ender. Go talk to Frank Lampard. Gerrard stuck it out at Rangers because I'm sure he got plenty of offers over the 3 seasons. He stuck it out, and it looks like he has a bit of extra meat on the bone in relation to being in management. And even one of the quotes he said about Coutinho yesterday was quite managerly, if you know what I mean, that he knows the type of person he is and he needs a bit of love. And to be honest, Rooney's he could pull off a masterstroke at Derby. I'd almost do that. He's in serious crisis mode at the moment. If he can come out the other side of it, it could be the best thing ever to whatever job he goes into further down the line. So it's very much, what do you do as an Everton fan? Maybe jump in and try and be the hero, or do you stay there and do something even bigger, but really help your career more longer term? While Everton could be fantastic, but could go very south very quick, and you could be doing Gary Neville interviews on YouTube with Frank Lampard.
Neal, so the betting, we've got Roberto Martinez is 5-4 favourite. I find astounding. Wayne Rooney and Duncan Ferguson are second joint favourites at 7-2. Now, the betting has, I think, permanent manager. If he manages 10 more games, it's a permanent manager. It's viewed as a permanent manager. So Duncan Ferguson's kind of viewed in that light there. Then you've got the likes of Frank Lampard 7-1, Graham Potter 8-1, Nuno Espirito Santo 14-1. Who do you think? It's a really, really crucial post this now, and it's a really crucial time for Everton to try and get someone in now who can settle them down. Martinez feels weird to me because he's been there and he got the sack for a reason. It's a bit like, you know, the old ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, you know, why jump back in? It didn't work the first time. So what do you reckon? Who fits it best?
It's hard to know who fits best, as insofar as all them managers are going to want to play a different brand of football. Like if you look at Martinez and say Potter in particular, they're going to want to play very, very different football than Rafa Benitez. And I don't think they've got the players to play the way they want to play, as in, you know, I've said it numerous times in the show around Pickford and the goalkeeper scenario at Everton. You know, with Pickford, you can only play long ball football from the back. I don't think he's capable of playing out from the back like other goalkeepers. So that would be a massive problem for the likes of Graham Potter if he went in there. And the same thing with Roberto Martinez. He's not going to want to play hoofball. I think Duncan Ferguson, if they can't get someone, say, more long-term, Duncan Ferguson, there's kind of like there was unfinished business when he was there in the interim manager the last time. I think Everton fans will warm to him. I wouldn't see him as a long-term project regardless. And again, he's been there. It kind of feels a little bit like Manchester United when all the backroom staff don't get sacked and the new manager comes in. And Duncan Ferguson has been in the background of the club doing terrible for the last 10 years. And, you know, nothing's really changed. So I don't think it's a gamble bringing in Ferguson. He probably a safe pair of hands to the end of the season. But if they want to look at, again, as we were saying, someone to build a project that's 2 or 3 years, maybe they're better off bringing in a Rooney or bringing in someone that can have fresh ideas, but they're going to have to back him. Like, this is a stick or twist scenario. I don't think Everton are going to be relegated. They're too good for that. But they have to stick with a manager. And that might mean going through a lean spell of results like Benitez just is. But the difference is you're weighing in behind a manager. You know, you're not bringing your Rooney a get out of our club banner on game 5 after he gets a loss away from home. So maybe they need a little change of mentality here. Fair enough, you get rid of Rafa because it didn't maybe feel right in the first place, but they need to bring in a manager that they're going to trust and definitely get at least a season out of before they start hitting the panic buttons.
And also, Neal, it's a manager that needs to get the tick and the thumbs up from the fans. If they don't get that, we're back in the same scenario again.
Yeah, I mean, Lampard got it with Chelsea, Roy, and let's be honest, you know, his start wasn't great with Chelsea, but, you know, it just felt right. And you knew almost immediately they're going to give this guy time. Remember, the transfer ban was there. You pretty much knew you were going to get to the end of the transfer ban with him and that he was going to be that safe pair of hands. And the crowd kind of weigh in behind that if the message is correct. Whereas Benitez, I think everyone was a given. You know, they interviewed a lot of the ex-pros and everyone came out and said the same thing. Oh, he'll have to hit the ground running. He'll have to achieve results. He'll have to get this rapport with the fans. And it was a big, big ask. Looking back now, it probably seems foolish more than anything. But at the time, it kind of felt doable. But, it's after kind of blowing up in their face.
Yeah. Okay, this week, Manchester United, the drama episode, what is it, 20 now? It looks like
Season
Ralph
7.
is looking for some divine intervention. Dave, we talk about the same thing nearly every week, just in a different way. But again, obviously they played at the weekend. They were 2-0 up, down tools nearly, and drew 2-2. But apart from that, it's the side drama that is really kicking off. And Anthony Martial and Ralph Rangnick are really having a go at each other.
Yeah, like that's what I said to you in the text. Where's Man United gone? As in the professionalism and what every other club looks to in relation to setting standards. And Rangnick came out after the game to say he didn't want to be in the squad, and fairly quickly, Martial came out on Instagram. So I would never not play for United. And I love the club. Blah 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 blah. You which?
Who do you believe, Dave?
Without obviously knowing, your guess would be the manager couldn't be bullshitting. Like, you can't help but think the manager wouldn't say that. But that's purely because of probably the position he's in. Martial, you could say, yeah, maybe he is talking a bit of nonsense because he's looked disinterested for many a year, but maybe that's just the face that he has. But it'd be just mind-boggling if a manager just decided to make stuff up in front of the world that players might just to kind of get his way. He obviously wants to go, let him go, but others would be giving out. One or two came out and go, no, Solskjaer wouldn't say that. There was problems with Lukaku, but you're devaluing him and you're taking the price down. Rangnick won't care if he's a bad egg, it's time to go, but it's just not what you'd expect straight after a game. And then of course Martial comes in and basically calls him a liar. So it's just not something you expect, especially with United, whatever about other clubs. But like I said to you, where are they gone? Ronaldo came out during the week and kind of said about standards, and basically half the team don't have the same standards and we should be aiming for top 3. And even Keane came out yesterday and went, well, top 3 is still not even good enough. But Ronaldo, in fairness, probably knows that's where they're not going to be at the very top tomorrow. But it's a case of, right, this is where we need to be. We need to be better than either Liverpool or Chelsea, and then start reeling your cities in. But that's what I said to you. Like, where's the kind of look at where United are going? Where's the kind of statement from the club and from the owners or whoever it may be going, this is what we're going to do for the next 5 to 6 years? Because it's probably going to take that long. Look at Liverpool, 4 or 5 years, and let's face it, a lot of luck with Klopp that got them there. And even still, now they're kind of gone behind again further still because City are so strong. So that's how hard this bloody job is. But it's kind of like, United need to be realistic. It's not going to happen tomorrow. There's rumours now also, just to jump in further, that Rangnick's getting frustrated because he's not able to bring in 1 or 2 players in January that he's trying to get because he's not quite getting the backing. So have they fallen out with him already, considering he's supposed to be the brainchild at the end of the season who's going to help bring the next manager or himself onto the next level? So it just makes you scratch your head even more. And that's not getting back to that's before you even look at the game yesterday. For the first hour, you're thinking, okay, this is maybe what Rangnick wants to do. United remotely impressive. And then they implode in the last half an hour. And it's just the epitome of United at the moment. But where they're going to go, what they're going to do, and having this side stuff is just not what you expect from who you would look at as the beacon of who you'd want to be, if you know what I mean, when it comes to stature in Premier League football.
Yeah, at the moment, Neal, Manchester United have another 26 years written all over them. You look at the standards, they're talking about, Ronaldo's even talking about top 3. Now, he probably means that to get up to the level of those 3 teams up there. But really, it isn't that. The level is Manchester City. And when you look at Manchester City and compare Chelsea and Liverpool, they're struggling to try and keep up with Manchester City at the moment. Yeah. So Manchester United are way back in the pack. So if you look at Manchester United, Neal, and then you look at Manchester City and have a real analysis on both teams and how far they're off, who would, from Manchester United, fit into that Manchester City team?
Is there even a player that would fit into the team? Like, we've said it multiple times, Pep wouldn't accommodate Ronaldo, but on the other hand, Pep wouldn't accommodate anyone coming out with any disrespect for the club. I've never heard a City player in an interview say anything negative about the manager, the club, the players. They've lost Champions League finals. They've bombed out of Europe. Is probably the biggest disappointment they've ever had, because they don't lose a lot of Premier League titles. But their attitude is spot on, and Pep has them zoned in that you're a team player or you're a no player. The way he handles your Mahrez, your Grealish, even De Bruyne is only now beginning to come into the season. There wasn't a whisper out of De Bruyne after the summer about being left out in the first 10, 12 games. And there he was scoring the winner yesterday against Chelsea. So Pep looks at a different player. He looks at mentality, he looks at attitude, and he just picks the right guy for the right position. Now, he also has the luxury of picking, when it comes to being like a left back or a right back, he'll pick 2 or 3 of them for 60 million, which is probably a luxury that not everybody has. But the stability that he has there is the key. He's stability knowing that in 3 years' time, I need to replace the legs of, Fernandinho at the time. So let's go and plan ahead. Man United don't have that. And if you look at Man United starting 11 yesterday, Bruno Fernandes was their standout player in the first 60 minutes, as Dave was saying. But I'm not seeing Bruno Fernandes getting in, even ahead of Bernardo Silva, who'll be his Portuguese mate. You're still putting Bernardo in that City side ahead of Bruno Fernandes. And the other thing that Pep wouldn't take off Bruno Fernandes was the hand gesturing. Now, he didn't get it yesterday. Maybe he did when they were losing the 2-goal lead. He just wouldn't put up with any nonsense from his players. And I think that's what it all comes down to, the respect that they have for the manager and the team, not to be coming out and kind of saying, it's kind of not me, it's the group, or we're not trying, or we're not, our standards have dropped, or we don't have ideas, or we need new information. The Luke Shaw interview 2 weeks ago, we kind of phased by it on the show here. That was unbelievable for him to come out and say, we don't have ideas on the field. I hope someone comes out with new ideas. And Luke Shaw, even though City don't have, they've had trouble at left and right back, but Luke Shaw wouldn't get near that side. Even in his brilliant year last year prior to the Euros, he wouldn't have gotten near the City side. So none. You wouldn't put any of them in that side on mentality, on attitude. And I think Pep wouldn't swap any of them in either.
Yeah, and Dave, Neal has just said it there. Right, Pep might be able to get a couple of 60 million fullbacks, but there's no reason why Manchester United can't do that either. So it really is about mismanagement, isn't it?
100% from top to bottom. I think that at the very top, they're quite happy because the commercial side of things is still as big as it ever was. And by the looks of it, that seems to be what they're most interested in. But if you look at, say, Liverpool as an example, their commercial revenue is nearly neck and neck with United at the moment, and it's down to, obviously, success. So can you imagine if United were bringing the odd league trophy or Champions League trophy back in, just what level they could get to? Because that's how big they are. If they were able to bring in that kind of side of things on it, that's what scratches my head about it now. They're making plenty of money. Now let's start and still are. Let's start looking at the footballing aspect with true professionalism, in my opinion, because since Woodward has been there, and obviously he's gone, there's always been kind of transfer mismatches where he's looking at one player, manager looking at another, 3 or 4 nearly done deals, and then they fall apart, and you're scratching your head. So there's no denying they have the financial capability, but who's doing the real homework? It's hard to, as I said, you can't see it from the outside. You can tell what clubs are running well and what clubs aren't. And of all clubs, Man United are not running well. Like there was a very good quote yesterday. I don't know how you pronounce the Wolves man. Is it Lag Lag? He said it yesterday. Great win, but the best thing is the lads put on the pitch some of my ideas. You know what I mean? Like, actually, they did what he wanted to do, and it paid off, and they won 3-1. Like, when is the last time a United manager said that, or a player said that? So they are obviously like relying and trusting in him, and best thing ever is they got a win out of it. Well, so what are they going to do? You'd expect them to go on from that. You're not seeing that from somebody who should be light years ahead of a Wolves, but at the moment they're not. Like, they're at that level, and potentially worse if it keeps going. Like, it's just, without going over the same stuff over and again, we can bring in managers and players, but above that now really need to cop on and focus on football and focus hard, because now all of a sudden, is Ranić even the answer if some of the stories that we're seeing in the last few days about him not being backed in January? So they could be back to the drawing board again.
Yeah, it's been question marks followed by more question marks, and no one really seems to know what their role is and their job is. And people who are not doing a good job seem to be sticking around above as you said, the commercial aspect is doing brilliant, but whoever is bringing in players and whoever's scouting these players, it's not good at all. It's actually fairly poor.
Yeah.
Okay, Neal, this man here, Chris Wood, joined Newcastle United to join Kieran Trippier. But Newcastle United have found out that 2 players are definitely not going to be enough. And I think we all knew that 2 players weren't going to be enough. I watched the game. I'm not sure if you watched the game yourself, but Chris Wood didn't get a touch barely on the ball in the second half. He might have got 2 or 3 touches in the second half. A bit like Manchester United, not using the centre forward to his best abilities, as in getting crosses into the box. They're still going to have to buy, aren't they? And it could be 4 or 5 players, and they could be down a few quid. Not that that'll bother them.
Yeah, like we did the show last week and we were talking about the potential signings in Newcastle and the dream signings in Newcastle, and I don't think any Newcastle supporter in his wildest dreams on a good night out thought to himself, Chris Wood is the guy to lead our front line, you know. It's actually a nightmare scenario for most of them, I would imagine. Strange signing. I don't know, is this an Eddie Howe signing or is this a club signing or what it was? Strange number 1 for Burnley to let him go, and strange number 2 then for Newcastle to take him on. They definitely need more than Chris Wood. They need someone prolific up front that's going to score goals. And he just doesn't seem to be the answer to me. The other side of it is as well, and Newcastle proved it, that when they go up in a game, they take a lead in a game, they sit back and they can't get out of their box. And what they did was yesterday, they just retreated. And when they won the ball, they couldn't get up the field. And Chris Wood is not really an outlet, you know, launch up a 70-yarder and he's going to hold up. He'll do 1 or 2 and he'll work his socks off. But you know what I mean? He isn't going to be running in behind, giving issues, you know, the way a more mobile striker might do.
Sorry, Neal, for interrupting. Is that a problem because of the players that Eddie Howe has there? He can't play the way he would normally play, which is get on the ball, dominate possession, and then that's when Chris Wood would come into his own.
Yeah, like bear in mind, you put Chris Wood in like an Arsenal, for example, if you wanted to play that role, or the way Chelsea used to play to Giroud, they used to play to his strengths. They get the ball wide, they get the ball in the box, and Giroud used to take out some great headers for finishes. But Chris Wood needs that supply, and Burnley were set up to supply Chris Wood, be it by the 70-yarders up front, but he would always have a partner up front with him. And then if not, they'd be trying to get the ball out wide and whipping crosses in. So they were feeding the beast up front. Whereas now, you know, he must be thinking to himself, I'm going to have to work probably 70% harder on the field, and I'm going to get about 50% less possessions, 50% less quality positions. Now, Eddie Howe must know this. Like, I mean, he must know before he brought him in, I'm going to have to change the way we play. We're going to have to change our dynamic. We need to be getting the ball wide, or we need to be delivering into the box. So, you know, maybe give him a couple of games to see where that goes. But for now, it looks like kind of a square piece in a round hole. And I don't really know where they're going to go with this. And I'm sure Newcastle fans in the next, 2 weeks left, are going to be dying to see what the next piece of the puzzle is, if Howe has a plan or if, you know, the board has a plan. But they definitely need fresher faces. They need more mobility. But I think they need more quality. Like we've been saying that probably for the last 5-10 years with Newcastle. It's just a question of what, you know, we were kind of saying loan signings, and like we were talking about Aubameyang last week, be it a risk or not, but at least it's someone that will run in behind, whereas Chris Wood just isn't that type of player. So yeah, they need recruitments and they need them fast.
Yeah. These two, Burnley, are plotting a 25 million double transfer for Crystal Palace striker Christian Benteke and Liverpool's Divock Origi. Is that an upgrade, Dave, or how's your feelings? Chris Wood, will he be missed?
If it's the two of them, I would say yes, because Benteke would be similar enough. If you look at his time at Villa, if Burnley do what they do best and get down the wing and cross in, obviously he will feed off that and play to his strengths. And then if you've got Origi off the back of it as well, you would say yes, because he's better than Barnes and Rodriguez and any other kids they have there together. Burnley don't have goals, and they got rid of some goals. So if they get rid of one and get in two, I would say yes. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be a guaranteed, because when they get there, you never know. But it was strange that they let go their better striker without not knowing already who's coming in. These are just rumours at the moment. But so, yeah, I would, purely because Benteke be similar, maybe a bit more agile. And if they purely focus on him the way Villa did and look at the joy that they got out of him. Origi, obviously the Belgian link as well, so they'd know each other and probably bounce off each other well if they could. On paper, it looks nice, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I'd be happy enough if I was a Burnley fan if the two came in. Even Benteke of the two, because he's very similar. But if the two came in, yeah, I'd be happy.
And freshen things up and give a bit of positivity around the place, which they need now that they're rock bottom. And I think we said before the Chris Wood thing was because that was the release clause, so they probably didn't have much of a say there at all. Okay, Bobby Firmino is subject to interest from Barcelona, and Liverpool will be willing to sell the 30-year-old if they receive around 17 million. Neal, Roberto Firmino, can Liverpool afford to let him go?
No, I don't think so. If they've a ready-made replacement lined up, great. If they don't, let's be honest, you're not going to buy a whole lot in the transfer market to come in to replace your front three in Liverpool's scenario and the kind of, the quality that they'd be looking for 17 million. The fee seems a little low ball, but David, tell you, Firmino has been a shadow of himself for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. He just has not got back up to the heights of that kind of front three, of gelling that front three, the way he used to drop into midfield, and everyone could wax lyrical of how good he was at bringing other players into the play. It's been a long time since we've kind of had that moment where we said he's on the ball here, and also he was always pitching in with a few goals. So you do feel Liverpool need to refreshen one of them. Jota's come in and done a good job, but they definitely need more depth. So letting him go would be risky. I wouldn't be letting him go now, whatever about end of season and planning ahead and getting someone in there. The fee probably doesn't really matter too much, as far as we go. You just be thinking you need a replacement, and you need a suitable replacement, and not like a kid that may or may not make it over the next year or two. You would need a solid, ready-made replacement to go in there. And, the purse strings at Anfield are very tight. They don't seem to make a whole lot of noise around attracting new players at the moment. So, be risky business letting him go. Either now, at the end of the year, they can plan ahead, but for now, it would be very risky.
And Dave, they're hardly going to let Origi and Firmino go in January.
Yeah.
So this could be more of a summer.
100%. I'd be very surprised. If they let one go, I'd be a little bit surprised in January, considering the two boys and out in the African Cup of Nations, and you never know. Then they might come back fully fit or could come back injured. I think it'd be a bit risky, and hopefully they've learned their lesson from last year with the defensive side of things. So I'd be surprised if either go, but yeah, there's no way they'd let the two. That's for sure. So maybe one, but yeah, certainly. In the summer it'd be a different story.
Okay, I'll stick with you, Dave. Chelsea have made a 33 million opening bid for Barcelona misfit Frenkie de Jong. I don't know why I say misfit, that's harsh, isn't it? But they're going to face competition from Bayern Munich, according to the Mail on Sunday. I don't understand this one. I've seen Frenkie de Jong play for Barcelona. He's always been neat and tidy and done his stuff.
Yeah.
Barcelona haven't been in a good place, so it's not a great place to play your football at the moment, although, Xavi might say different now. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a bit he's a good player, but it reminds me of kind of Rafa's time at Liverpool. He was just obsessed with buying central midfielders, and I was like, what are you doing? You're just kind of constantly buying and trying to unlock something. And that's what it feels like with Chelsea, because I just quickly, what is it? Would you go with 2-3 in the midfield the way they play? It's like a 4-3-3.
They play 3, but he doesn't play in. He plays sort of in the sitting role, collecting from the back.
But providing none of these go, they've Jorginho, Kante, Pulisic, Kovacic, Mount, Ziyech, Havertz, Loftus-Cheek, Saul, Ross Barkley. There's about 10 there without count. 10 into 3 doesn't, and then they're going to throw in a number 11. So that's why I'm a bit surprised. Now, obviously, there could be one or two. I doubt if Chelsea would keep a couple of them. But you're kind of like, is he that bit ahead? Is he that much of a gap from the rest? I think he just slot in and be just like the rest of them. So I'm a bit torn about, is it just kind of a numbers thing where they're going to lose one and they're going to replace one, and 50, because the rumours are that Barcelona want 50 and 33 is not enough for them, and they're trying to get a bit more out of it. So the only thing it says to me is somebody's going, or obviously Saul hasn't worked out, so maybe try and lure Barcelona in, and throw him in the mix or something. I don't know. But it's just, he's a nice player, very technical, typical Ajax kind of youth ranks, very clever passing on the ball. But he's kind of decent at everything, but not a pure attacking midfielder, a pure defensive mid. He just is a bit of a decent at everything, but like, was it something or whatever, master of nothing, you know?
Yeah. Neal, I'm just going to ask you on that one yourself, because Kante hasn't been getting in on a regular basis, less so than the others. Could you see him being pushed out because Kovacic is getting in? He's performing relatively well. We've got nearly the world's best player playing beside him. I'd never seen that. I didn't see that with Italy either. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's that good. So could you see Kante go? And I think that's a mistake, in my opinion, but what's my opinion?
Kante would have so many suitors. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. Any team would love a Kante. It's kind of that mystery that I think sometimes managers go in and they don't really know what to do with him, as in to play him into six. Obviously, Tuchel rathers to play the two ball-playing, I call them, holding midfielders in Kovacic and Jorginho. But like as Dave said there, he's got a lot of options if he ever wants to switch up his midfield three or slash midfield five, the way he plays two in behind Lukaku. So Kante for me, and again, watching him versus Liverpool there 2 weeks ago, Kante and Kovacic absolutely bullied and battered the Liverpool three, which you don't say every time. So no, number one, I wouldn't be letting him go unless something happened where contractually or the player genuinely wanted to leave and had another project in mind. I don't think Tuchel would let him go. I think he's a hell of a lot more higher quality than what he has in there. I still think Tuchel is figuring out his best combinations, because Jorginho was left out for 1 or 2 games, and it was mentioned that Chelsea were playing faster football and a little bit quicker counter-attack. It was mentioned by some. So maybe, he is still tinkering in there to find how he feels is his best side. But like as Dave is saying, even to mix it up and bring in a guy like Frenkie de Jong wouldn't make sense in any way, shape or form. I think he has a problem that they're after bringing in Saul and they don't know what to do with him. He doesn't seem to play well. He hasn't settled. Which a lot of the Chelsea players are probably in the same boat. Ziyech hasn't set the world on fire, but yet he seems decent on the field. He seems to fancy Pulisic, but he can't stay fit. So Chelsea just have this little, period between now and the end of the season where Tuchel needs to figure out, especially for next year, to have a real crack at the title, what his best midfield three are. Now only he can say, and let's be honest, he's better qualified. But for me, I wouldn't be letting Kante go. Even if you look at what City do with Fernandinho, you kind of thought he'd come near the end of his career, but he's hung in there and he's played a vital part to the team when he's needed, and Kante could be that guy. If he is coming near the end, I still think he's a valuable player to have in there.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with you, Neal, because seemingly PSG, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid and Liverpool are all interested in signing Kalvin Phillips this summer. Leeds would prefer not to have him in the Premier League. How much do you rate him? Again, being a Liverpool supporter, I suppose, would you like to see him go there?
I quite like him, yeah. I think it's hard sometimes, right, to judge Phillips and Declan Rice because of that extra kind of English hype around them. And, everyone seems to elevate them that extra little level because of the Englishness, I guess. But I think he's a good player. I think he can play multiple positions across the middle. He's a baller, like a proper ball passing player. Technique is excellent, but he's also he can hit a tackle. He's great agility. Like, the guy fills in a centre back sometimes for Leeds, and you don't really know the difference between him and a regular centre back. So he's adaptable. At the moment, the way Liverpool are, I'd love to have him in the side because they're struggling across the middle three. And I think he'd be an upgrade on Milner. And I think Henderson has having a real tough time this season. You imagine being able to put him in a couple of them games. I wouldn't be putting him in the Fabinho role. I think Fabinho role is the 6. I like him there. But I'd love to see him in another team that plays a little bit differently than Leeds to see what he could bring to the table. It just would depend on the transfer fee. You wouldn't pay crazy money, I don't think, for him, but I think he'd be a player that a lot of teams would be interested in.
Yeah, Dave, kind of looks like he's not going to be sticking around at Leeds too long.
Yeah, and obviously Leeds, the position they're in, unfortunately, and the books and what have you, this is a chance to bring in decent money to potentially build up the squad again, because like obviously Premier League money is solid money for them and they can bring in players, but you're at that crossroads now where you really need to try and step up, because obviously they did well last year and now they're slipping back into reality because they kind of stood still. So it's kind of like, do we cash in on a player and who could we get away with? And this would be big bucks. You know, Phillips, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be jumping through hoops to get him, but I'd be still intrigued to see him at someone else, because like Neal said, I'm bang on the money there. I want to, has he got it? Is he that player? You know, one of the lads kind of mentioned that Mr. Ward-Prowse yesterday, and I'm like, I can't help but feel he might be a Letitia and be brilliant at Southampton, but will, like, apart from his goals, which are quite important, what does he bring? Because I don't watch him enough, you know, but his free kicks grab headlines. Is Phillips grabbing headlines because he's now an England midfielder, or is he genuinely of that calibre? So, yeah, I would like to see him move so you can really kind of put him in the bracket I think he may or may not deserve. But like I said, I'd be a bit if it was 100% Liverpool, but anywhere, I'd be just intrigued to see him go and just see exactly what he's got.
Yeah, and some of these teams just need to be refreshed. Liverpool, the same, you know, just get new people in, new blood, new energy. So
competition.
It'd be interesting to see. Okay, Fiorentina are close to accepting a 58 million bid from Arsenal for prolific 21-year-old Serbian striker Dusan Vlahovic. He's not the only one that Arsenal are looking for, though, either, Dave. And Diego Costa seems to be on the radar. I kind of hope that he is going to come back, because he is one of those players that just
he's box office,
feathers, doesn't he? Comment on both. Feel free.
Right, we'll do quickly. Costa, Aubameyang must be gone because they can't. I think they've got enough drama out of him, so they're bringing in Costa to keep the reality TV fans happy, maybe, because he's 33. He's finishing up with Atletico Mineiro apparently. So allegedly, according to a crowd called Goal, they've held informal talks with the Spaniard, who's expected to leave at the end of the season. Or this month, sorry.
So that'd be a free transfer.
Yeah, so watch this space. Having Diego Costa back in the Premier League would be fun. That'll be it. Like, who knows what he'll bring at 33 years? I have no idea what he's doing out there, but you know, it's not going to be. He's not going to come in and be tame, that's for sure. Vlahovic is an interesting one because obviously his goal scoring record for the year is ridiculously impressive, and in a calendar year, he's the second best record, just shy of Messi's, apparently, for 2021. He's kind of gone up the ranks in relation to transfer targets, probably underneath Mbappe and Haaland, so to speak. That's how high his stock has gone. So for the likes of Arsenal to potentially be ahead of the queue might be quite impressive, because there's only two other strikers I would put ahead of him at the moment in terms of like who play or who might fit the bill for as top strikers. So there's only two of them, and there's 5 or 6, 7 or 8 maybe of the really top clubs way ahead of Arsenal, that I'm surprised they're not more rumoured to be with this guy, or maybe he's an option too if the Mbappes and Haalands don't come around. So he looked okay against Ireland, because I remember he got the goal. He looked a bit hot and cold, but when it mattered, he put the ball in the back of the net, which is what you want from your striker. And at the end of the day, sometimes they can be shocking for 89 minutes, but all they have to do is be right once. His record this year is ridiculous, and it doesn't seem to be stopping. So, you know, if Arsenal were to pull it off, I'd be impressed, considering who else is up for grabs. There's only two others I think may be ahead of him in terms of reputation at the moment for who's up for grabs at the end of the year or January.
Yeah, and Arsenal aren't going to get those. So, Neal, when you look at that kind of sign, and Arsenal fans like Lacazette, he works hard, he's a decent player, does score goals. Martinelli is in there now. He's starting to step up the ladder there at Arsenal and generally in world football. How will, if Vlahovic comes in, how would that affect those two, do you think?
You'd hope it's a positive impact. I still think Martinelli can play off the wing. You know, if you're playing, a front three or orthodox 5, you can still come in from wide. So I don't really think it will affect them. You know, sometimes a player comes in and he's a direct replacement for someone else. If you look at like Sancho at United, you expected him to take the left or right flank. So he was taking kind of a spot away from a youngster. Whereas if Vlahovic comes in, you're kind of shipping Aubameyang out, and you're giving Lacazette less burden, I guess, through the middle. Where he's been good now since he's been kind of made kind of interim captain, dare I say. But, you know, Arsenal do need that kind of high-profile player. I think Arsenal have always been very good in digging out these guys, and they've spent good money over the years on that type of player. So it feels like an Arsenal type of signing that they'd weigh in. They wouldn't be worried about the transfer fee. If you get Aubameyang off the books, it clears out a massive amount of wages. And I think that's the key of all of this. You talk about shipping any player out of a club. The biggest problem is making them go. Look what Coutinho has done to Barcelona now for 5 years. Like, they just need his wage off the structure, and then they can start bringing in fresh blood. So it makes sense if Aubameyang goes, and then it also makes sense that you're bringing in, as Dave was saying, probably the next best striker in Europe at the moment. And, that could elevate Arsenal to a new level if they get it right. But then, there's other circumstances, whether he can come into the Premier League, hit the ground running, have the same kind of numbers, which is also for another day. But yeah, it makes perfect sense. The fee is not absorbent. You're not talking 100 million, you're talking manageable money. And obviously you cleared out Aubameyang, and it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to leave it there. Dave Buggle, thank you very much. Neal Dobbs, the very same. And thank you for listening in again. Of course, the transfer window has only got a couple of weeks left, so don't forget to join us next week.